Good morning. My English may sound odd because I'm not from the US or United Kingdom, so please bear with my strange pronunciation. Before I go to my presentation, before I start that talk, I want to speak briefly about the benefits of all your work here in Slovenia. When I woke this morning, I had clean, fresh water. When I went to the bathroom, it was to a plumbing system that was connected. Last night, when I went out to a restaurant, no one robbed me. Maybe I was lucky because I'm old, but the other thing was no one offered me drugs or gave me the impression that they were on drugs other than alcohol, and they were having a wonderful time. And the street was clean. And the most alarming thing I saw was some graffiti, and it was a little artistic. My friends, your country is one of the few nations on earth, and I mean few, that is truly civilised, that is in the band of what I would call developed. You are enjoying the benefits of generations before, of engineers, institutions, politicians, decisions that give you a great life here, now. And it's easy to say, oh, it should be better, blah, blah, blah. Of course, that's the journey. But actually, whatever's happened, you're in a really good position now. And there's something like 8 billion people on the planet right now who aren't in that position. The numbers are something like 86% of people on the planet don't have access to that combination of things that I just spoke about. And in the opening address, there was a reference to how crazy the world is. It is crazy, but the news flash is we're not. As president of the International Tunnelling and Underground Space Association, I visit our member nations and other nations almost continuously. So if you're on LinkedIn, you'll see it's like, in English we call it chicken man. I'm everywhere, okay? I'm in this country, the next country. I tell you, what you have here is the exception. And our organisation of engineers, as reflected through ITA, we cooperate despite politics. So right now, if you'll just bear a thought, there are 40 tunnel builders trapped in a tunnel in the most extreme conditions in the Himalayas in India. And the engineers from around the world and companies and member nation representatives have come together to form an engineering solution. And that's an engineering solution amongst people who would otherwise be enemies. So India, Pakistan, China, together as engineers, looking for a solution. So, but that's before I've even started the presentation, okay? What we do is exceptional. We are an expression of the highest form of civilization because we actually deliver for our people, and it's happened here. So, I'm going to start my presentation now, the presentation I've done for you, and it's a little strange, and no doubt you're expecting that, so I don't want to disappoint you. Engineers to do the stuff, lawyers to protect them, not contracts that create a fight and conflicts that cause bedlam. I've spoken to the translators. I understand this is a bit tricky because I'm using some unusual English, but the message is clear. We, engineers, are uniquely placed to create a better life with infrastructure. Creation of infrastructure has great social utility. The lawyers' roles should be directed to enabling the engineers to create better lives for our people and planet. That is their job. I know because I'm one of them. And I know because I'm also an engineer. So I know both tribes. We need to be empowered to get on with doing our job for our people. Life is far too short. Our projects should be fun. All parties can play fair. We can build and be as one. As children, certainly the children I mixed with, the engineers, the scientists, the technicians, we love to build and create. We just need the room and the environment to do it, and we love working really hard because we find it fun. And we shouldn't apologise for that. That's what makes us better and different. And that's why it's why this morning I had such a good morning, and last night such a good night. So we as engineers uniquely placed to create a better life. We create this infrastructure with enormous social utility, and the lawyers should help us to do that. And they can, but we need to tell them what we want. We need to describe the environment that we want to operate in. Engineers to do the stuff, lawyers to protect them, not contracts that create a fight and conflicts that cause bedlam. So for those of you who are young and haven't been on a project with disputes, here it comes. And for those of you who are old or feel old, you've obviously been in a modern project because of the conflicts. Oh, hang on. Yeah, that's right. So, underground solutions, reliable and trusted, make for happy citizens their urban life not busted. Okay? That's what I described to you. So, we should have contractual arrangements to support us so that we can do our best work and create a desirable social framework. This is the too fun. Yeah. It's done it again. Sorry, this is going to be a very long presentation if I keep going around like that. Yeah. So, new and reimagined cities are today crafted using our infrastructure. I'm now concentrating, by the way, on the right button in my left hand. This is a big leap for me. So, past transformations include cities like Madrid, Boston, Shenzhen. If you're old enough and ugly enough to have visited any of these before the transformations, you'll know what that means. Right now, there are other cities and there are staggering, amazing transformations occurring. Mumbai, Hanoi, Delhi, Jakarta. See where they are? They're not here. They're not in this region. And the transformations are staggering. And they will join shortly. Paris, Zurich, London, New York, Sydney, etc. That's what's happening. So you've got cities with new infrastructure transforming the lives of the people within the cities, lifting them from a horrible, in my view, horrible life to something fantastic. Tunnel building tech by mechanised and TBM is proven trusted technology. You can rely on them. Okay. What we do technically is very, very mature now. Okay. In the Himalayas, we've got a problem. If you haven't been to the Himalayas, go there, you'll see why. That is extreme tunnelling, insane tunnelling, tunnelling to create a nation. But here, in our part of the world, the sorts of tunnelling that we do under our cities, it's so proven, it's so reliable. A problem is the exception. And this is, So mature and reliable technology, even with extreme ground conditions and onerous performance requirements, is fine. Construction in all countries, no matter which ones they be, legally is often complex and worse, avoidably. It doesn't have to be such a mess legally. Contracts tend to be very complicated and distract us from doing our good engineering. So I'm not from Slovenia. I've not done contracts here. So I did some legal research, and what I found is queer. Okay, translation immediately required. For those of you who are born after 1980, there is another definition of queer for this particular rhyme. So it's nothing to do with binary or non-binary or anything like that. It's just a little odd, right? So what I found here seemed a little odd. A lot of reference to procurement and contractual fights between clients and contractor, not failed engineering. Not failed engineering. Fighting. Come on, clicker. Now, tunnelling in Slovenia, the Karawanks tunnel I did like, but with military action after opening and Tube 2 contract, an awful legal fight. This was what I learnt about Slovenia. So not we had so much trouble technically, no, instead we have soldiers fighting, we have some fight with a contractor, a lot of reference to which country they were from. Come on, that's not a technical fight, that's a contractual legal fight. So it suggests to me that legal fights aren't uncommon, and I don't think that traditional contracts and their strict requirements are really so well suited to underground construction. And we need a legal framework that allows us to be good engineers. And so, in the end, the political and commercial issues should be what's left to the lawyers, not the engineer, not the engineering. That's for us. That's our place. Ground conditions number one. Mistakes they do abound, because despite what predictions are made, the expected rock sometimes is not found. It is what it is. So this is probably the biggest contractual issue. Of course, one party will say, but we don't agree, you're just wanting more money, and the contractor either is just wanting more money, which sometimes does occur, or genuinely is surprised in a bad way. And so it's an international issue that encountered rock is neither what was expected or perhaps does not perform structurally as the design wanted. So there's also some new issues, and they've been referred to in the other opening addresses. So we've got modern issues with project timeframes, and we've got modern issues with new emerging risks that we as a society need to embrace. So adaptive engineering is the new mantra that we hear. The world is getting hotter. I thought I did this before with the word. I've used queer twice. Sorry, this is actually, it's my presentation that I write for here. It's not like something I just repeat. So the weather has gone really queer. The data is quite certain. The rare events come more often, and when they come around, they are much bigger than the historic ones we've been plotting, which is reference to what was said before about the size of the storm events. But how do we deal with that contractually? How do we deal with this change? Hang on. So we know that the climate events are more intense than expected and of a different character. So in Pakistan, just a few weeks ago, I saw hundreds of thousands of people at risk of becoming, well, actually they were ill, but at risk of dying because the nature of the weather events was different to anything they've ever experienced, and the floods aren't clearing from more than a year ago, and the water is stagnant, so they can't drink it. So this is This is a really big deal. This is severely challenging existing infrastructure around the planet. And it's not well captured in contracts, normal contracts. This is an international problem. When I spoke to the translators, they were worried I was specifically talking about Slovenia, okay? It's actually international. Bureaucracies as bold as brass, their agendas often hidden, blackmail projects to pay up, or their approvals won't be given. This also is an epidemic in the world where contractual frameworks are so rigid that third parties, whatever the agency, whatever it may be, in substance blackmails the projects. And if you don't do what you're told, you don't get your approval. And if you don't get your approval, your project's running late. And if your project runs late, there'll be liquidated damages. So therefore you pay up. My friends, it's blackmail. It's a modern form of blackmail. And it is an international phenomenon. Competitive commercial tendering, a price race to the bottom, means the variability of the rocks and other uncertainties are dismissed and often forgotten. This old-fashioned commercial tendering process that locks projects in the way that it does, I understand legally it's often required, I understand from a Treasury point of view why it's done, but it leads to some crazy results. And I really counsel against it for the modern times. So your simple D&C lump sum contracting is a recipe for disaster where there are such large uncertainties. In the face of all this nonsense, in a world that's gone berserk, we need new forms of contracts with relationships that work. Relationships that work. Because, as is said in English, and I'm not sure if it's said in Slovenian, we can't find new land with old maps. We can't complain that we're in dispute in a major infrastructure project if we contract the way we did before. How did that's magic. This is, I must be, yeah, okay, I really didn't push, yep, understand. Yep. So ITA and FIDIC and NEC just recent have drafted up new forms of contract which we think are quite decent. At the heart of what we created, at the nub of what we did, we promote competitive processes with honesty in the bid. So new ways of contracting that are based on truth and reward us as engineers and technicians for truth. So these new contracts actually reflect the special demands of underground engineering, and in the end, a contract's just an agreement. It's nothing. It really is something you can adjust for the special circumstances of a project, of a country, what have you. So this is the new way. The client does some homework, puts their options on the line, says, assume these risks and rock conditions, bid on these, and you'll be fine. At the nub of these new contracts, at the nub of what we did, is to recognise that in the end, you cannot alter what you dig. It is what it is. And if we're building our projects, we have to deal with it. And we should do that with trusted, dynamic commercial relationships. So there's quite a revolutionary publication about underground works contracts. It looks at underground works and how to adjust the risk. And it has a focus on deliverables and timeframes, a focus on technical resolution of issues, not legal. And it took us about 5 years to make it in collaboration with FIDIC, that's ITA and FIDIC, and it's a bespoke underground works contract, and it's used by the World Bank in hydro projects now. So in this newer form of contract, firstly, it's a standard form, so everyone can sort of understand it. It's not 10,000 pages long. It costs less than 1 hour's fees in law, and it tries to have fair risk allocation and focus on engineering as keys to delivering efficient and effective underground works. It's not perfect. I'm not here trying to sell the contract. I'm just here suggesting please consider, even just have a read to see how else things can be done. So it puts in high priority completion schedule and schedules of baselines that are assumed. The contractor is expected to do the jobs they tendered in accordance with the agreed schedule. The contract is not directed at lawyers except for administration. The focus is on the engineering. So there's geotechnical baseline reports. Don't stress about geotechnical baseline reports. It's not a warranty. It's not a, we promise the ground will be like this. No. It's just a factual position against which time and money can be adjusted. It's just locking in a price, assuming a particular set of factual circumstances, and then if we work together, we can adjust. So long as the conditions are no worse than what's been put in the GBR, then actually the contractor just has to perform. That's it. And if they're not as expected, well then there's a mechanism to adjust things. Engineering style, not conflict style. So the completion schedule has a high priority, milestones are anticipated as part of the proposal. So it's very outcome focused, allowing us to be engineers and to deliver. And so there's the accepted how much you're going to get for it, you're obliged, the contractor's obliged to execute the works correctly, and only additional costs are recoverable if the physical conditions encountered are outside the GBR. So it's not just that the GBR is a benchmark, you also have to show that there was an increased burden on you as a contractor. So it's not a ticket to just getting money for nothing. And it looks something like that. So I hear you ask, hey Arnold, what new things have you heard? Are there new risks that are coming? Are there new things even more absurd? So emerging issues from a legal point of view, I think. And the answer to your question, my answer, honest true, is that the world is changing fast, so here's what I reckon we should do. I recommend there are lessons from alliances, lessons to consider, ways of adjusting extra costs between the client and the successful bidder. So alliances, I work in alliances because Australia has been doing them for a long time, and when they work, and they don't always work, but they mostly work, whereas normal contracts don't work, they never work, there's always disputes. In alliances, they provide a collaborative work environment. They want everyone to trust each other. The owner is willing and actively facilitates solutions in the face of adversity. The project really looks at together, the engineers together, the client, the stakeholders, the suppliers of key equipment, everybody, we call it in English, in the same tent. It allows us to be good engineers. It allows us to find solutions. And so it becomes a very dynamic way of managing risk. But in some countries, it's illegal. In some countries, this would never be permitted. And yet, in my experience, if a country is mature enough and the organisations are mature enough, this is a great environment to work in. It's one for all and all for one. Alliances need a big P culture. So big P in English, I'll just help translate. Big P is one project. It's a big P way of resolving. And to do this well, you need one team and the strength to kick out any dispute-hungry vulture. Okay, Vulture's a strong term. It does rhyme with culture. I was obviously a little tired when I wrote it. But the point is that in dispute, while we may suffer as technical people, others are like vultures and get rich. There are strong actors at work who celebrate conflict. That's not us. Right? So let's call it out and get the vultures back and get the engineering in. So it's trust, ownership, getting the right mix of people together, risk management, all of that. So in your contracts that you're drafting, in the things by which we measure, add some KPIs on SDGs and make allowances for extreme weather. So the things that are really important to us as a society now, the things that are challenging the world, the stuff that our communities are demanding from our politicians and from us, let's build contracts that build them in so that we can find solutions, better options, innovate. Confess. I thought that's a strong word. Confess there's concrete in our constructions. Concede the carbon footprint huge, but optimise the design. In contract, let them choose. Provide mechanisms to embrace the latest developments in technology and design, innovation. Help create the new metrics, transparent ways to count. The things we build are forever. So contractually encourage adjustment of that huge carbon footprint amount. Okay, my poetry was a bit stretched. That's a rather large last sentence. But my point is, our projects last for so long between concept and final delivery that we need flexibility within our contracts to innovate and adjust because the world needs us to. In contracts, well, that's what it is. Just include the metrics and what have you. Life is far too short. Our projects must be fun. All parties can play fair. We can build and be as one. In a world that has gone crazy, we engineers do things the best. We must set great example. Delivering great social outcomes be our quest. My conclusions. Infrastructure has a basic value. Right? Just a basic value. The cost is not truly known until it's built. We don't truly know. So our contract should capture that. Not making some rich that shouldn't be rich. Not destroying people who shouldn't be destroyed. But fair. Fair is okay. We can talk fair. It's not a word that shows weakness. It's actually what we need as a civilization to move forward. Life's too short for having a miserable life, fighting each other under traditional contracts. Let me be more blunt. I'm not sure if in Slovenia you've seen it, but in some countries the suicide rate amongst our young in construction is disproportionately high because of the fighting in the projects. They love the engineering, but they don't cope well with the conflict. So we actually need it for our young engineers too, because this is old dinosaur stuff, this fighting that we do. Let's reassume our position as leaders of delivering a better life for our peoples and planet. And that means new contract forms that empower us to do great work. My friends, that is my rather unusual presentation for you this morning. I mean it absolutely wholeheartedly, and thank you for your time.